another episode of Get a Load of This from the Silver Creek Studios. I'm Jared.
I am Ryan.
And if you're listening to this on the day it was released, it's Veterans Day.
True.
We like our military-themed holidays around here.
Yeah, we do tend to promote those a little bit more. As long as you're not carving a pumpkin and putting on a stupid fucking costume, we're down with it, you know? Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's meaning to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're legitimately celebrating someone or something. And, so, I'm all on board. And it's pretty fair holiday, right? No one's getting gifts just because, no one's getting anything. It's just, we take a break to honor, the veterans. The difference between Veterans Memorial Day, right? Yeah. So,
yeah. Okay. So I was going to ask that. Are you one of these that gets irritated when people don't know or don't kind of recognize the difference between?
I don't get irritated, but
fallen soldiers versus, the living veterans.
Yeah.
Do you think there should be a difference?
I think it's a good idea to have a holiday that honors those that have died in the service of the military in defense of our nation and our freedoms, and then to have another one for those that have just simply served. It doesn't bother me. Whenever I hear someone say, we want to thank on Memorial Day, say, hey, thank you for your service, and we want to thank all of our veterans. It's like, well, no,
on Veterans Day, we want to remember all of those fallen soldiers,
right? But honestly, I don't know. I think that maybe 10 years ago, I didn't recognize the difference. That now, I think the environment that we're in, and political and whatever, is just everybody's so keyed off on certain things. But either way, you know what? You should thank a veteran. You should thank, and on top of that, you should thank first responders. You should thank the cop that you see. You should thank anybody that is willing to put their body in front of yours in defense of whatever it is that that you happen to be doing.
Do you remember? I asked because you're a little bit older than me.
I have to point that out.
Do you remember a time when veterans weren't as highly regarded? I guess it would be, post-Vietnam.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but I mean, I remember there being, there's plenty of movies out there.
Sure.
I mean, Forrest Gump is a good one where they clearly didn't appreciate those that were coming home from Vietnam. But
I'm just trying to remember when that turned to where they were highly regarded and praised and honored. And
I would say that if you were to ask some Vietnam veterans today, there are a faction. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not old enough to be one. My dad's one. My uncles as well. But I bet you there's a good faction of Vietnam vets that feel like they're still not completely accepted or respected or well regarded by the masses. I think majority are fine, but there's that faction of them that'll never feel.
Yeah.
Never feel right, but all the movies, you look at Deer Hunter, Forrest Gump I already mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of movies that discuss and focus on the post-war, post-Vietnam soldiers coming home and that. But it was a shame.
It's just weird
from what I hear, the way they were treated, but it's.
But now there's entire advertising campaigns and promotional events at ball games with soldiers throwing out the first pitch and soldiers coming to their kids' school to surprise them when they get back. All this stuff, and it's a tear-jerking moment. And everybody loves it.
Not everybody loves it.
Well, okay.
I mean, I think it's a good thing. I think those videos that you see of soldier surprises wife or kids at school play or something like that. Or there was one I just saw that was a mother who had active duty in the Army, and she was wearing the kid's school mascot uniform and at an assembly, and took the mascot head off, and it was a great moment, right? I don't know. It's kind of like giving the Down syndrome kid the football in the last game of the season. It was really cool when it was kind of organic, and it was the kid's idea, and they just really wanted to do something nice for this kid who was the team manager for 4 years of high school. Now that it seems like everybody's doing it the same thing, just the genuineness.
Every other week there's a surprise thing.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
the authenticity of the moment
to that
is
kid
gone.
and to that soldier
it's just
parent,
as big a deal. Right.
It's a huge
right.
deal.
Right. I think it's probably just the effect of social media. So I don't want to take away from any of it.
Right.
I think it's good and everybody should keep doing it. But it's like, all right, yeah, here's another one,
The first time you saw something like that, it was this, you couldn't help but just
gut-wrenching.
Cry.
Yeah. Well, and then...
now you're like, okay, can we just get to the first pitch?
Yeah, right. Yeah, one of my favorite comics who I mention a lot on this podcast, Bill Burr, I think it was him. He on his podcast, it wasn't even a stand-up bit, I don't think, was talking about how you can't go to a hockey game, a football game, basketball game, or a baseball game without having these emotional moments where everybody's crying, or you're close to it, or you you're at least you hit you in the gut a little bit.
Yeah.
And his point was, he's like, I just want to go to a basketball game. I just want to go watch the hockey game.
Right.
I don't need to have, a moment every time. I just want to watch the game. And I get what he's saying, and I kind of agree with him that it's good if you, on Veterans Day or on Memorial Day or 9/11, important days that we respect and pay a little homage to those individuals. But I think the more you do it, it kind of, again, the authenticity is then brought into question. And is it the right thing to do every single game? I think it would mean a lot more if it was only done in certain occasions, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I probably am wrong.
I hear what you're saying. I think they wouldn't do it if it wasn't helping with fan appreciation and the ratings and whatever, right? So if everybody was pissed and complaining all the time, they would stop doing it.
Right.
But so it's probably just you being crotchety.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not turning it off. And,
no, I know.
I mean, look, here's a good topic. It'll be, well, I guess when this comes out, it'll be another week or two. Is Guns N' Hoses, which is, for those not in St. Louis, maybe they have those around the country, I don't know, but in St. Louis, it's for Backstoppers, which is a support organization for fallen first responders. So police, fire, and paramedic. And it's a boxing match against, it's police versus fire. And it's great. And I've never been. I think I may have talked about this already once.
Have.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, that from what I understand, I haven't gone, but from what I understand, it is it's an emotional event, and that there's a lot of interesting and heartbreaking stories about police officers and firefighters who are no longer able to go home to their families. So, but I'm going to it expecting that.
Right. Now you're going to be disappointed.
No, I mean, I want to have that. I want to. There's a reason for it, but. When you're going to a middle of the season Mizzou basketball game, and here comes another one. It's like, where do they keep? I don't know. Maybe I'm being a dick.
Well, along those lines, not of you being a dick, but I wanted to get a beer this week that somehow had something to do with veterans or Veterans Day or something. So I'm doing all this.
You got Camo.
Yeah, right.
You ever had Camo beer?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
No.
I wouldn't. From what I understand, we shouldn't.
All right.
If we like our eyesight.
So I'm doing all this checking and what's available and what's out there and what can we get. Not finding much, but there was the whole Freedom Reserve, Budweiser Freedom Reserve. But you can't get it anymore. Even just a couple weeks ago, I saw it at the store and it's not there anymore, at least where we shop. So I couldn't get that. But this is, I know, people can call me out, and this is not the same as Veterans or Veterans Days, but you just mentioned it.
Right.
There's a brewer in Belleville, Illinois, 4204 Main Street.
That's the name of the...
Yeah, Main Street. It's kind of lengthy. 4204 Main Street Brewing Company. And they just go by 4204.
Right.
But anyway...
I wonder where they're located.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. They're a local brewer. They've only been around like 4 years, and they make several different kinds of beers. They have a restaurant now. They've won a bunch of awards, so it's really good. Anyway, they have one of their beers is called Off Duty, and it supports the first responders, so police, fire department, paramedics. And some of the sales of the beer goes to the Backstoppers, which you just talked about. So that's a local St. Louis organization that raises money for fallen first responders or people injured in the line of duty.
Right.
So anyway, I picked up some of this off-duty lager. So let me grab some of that real quick, and we'll try it out.
We're usually more prepared than this. They're usually
at the ready. Have it ready. We usually have mugs sitting here. And
yeah.
Let me grab some.
Well, I guess I got to fill now. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Talk about the fact that I just took my shoes off for the first time. I don't know. My feet were kind of hurting. I've been wearing those boots all damn day long, and I needed a breather. So 40. Yeah, it's kind of a cool can.
It is. It's very patriotic.
Yeah.
It's got the whole American flag theme going.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the can. I don't know. 4.2% alcohol. Reminds me of Code 3 Spices, who we've talked about on here before. That they have, I don't know, it says they're given something of all these proceeds, right? Mm-hmm. Portions of the proceeds of the off-duty lager will go directly to nonprofits supporting first. So that is very similar to Code 3, which is great. And let's see, that's easy. Right? I don't know what percentage they're given, but a portion of their proceeds.
I hope it's 4.2%.
That'd be great. But I mean, if every company were to do that,
right,
and just say, you know what, not necessarily first responders, to whatever, if it's, let's throw Chick-fil-A out there, right? If Chick-fil-A really wants to support the church, give a little bit to the church. If it's, I don't know, if it's whatever the organization may be, whatever the charity, if it's for homeless people, if it's for, the VFW, whatever, just give something. I don't know. It's easy for me to say. This guy that doesn't. I'm not.
How much do you give?
Well, I donate a lot of crap to the resell it shop, which does that count? I mean, it's someone paid for it.
Somebody's getting some good out of it.
So I hope that guy certainly helps on my taxes. That's for sure. But
my mom took a bunch of stuff up there the other day, and I said, "Did you get a receipt for everything? Because you can write off everything that you donate. Right. I think even just like a shirt, like a polo shirt, something's like $25 or something."
Yeah.
She's like, "No, I didn't know you could do that. Yeah. I just dropped it off." Well,
does she do her own taxes?
No.
See, that's the challenge. Well, I do my own taxes.
Yeah.
That to keep track of all that shit that you've donated is
but a pain.
Yeah. I hope the IRS isn't listening, but how are they going to know? You drop off a trash bag full of old clothes, which we just did too on Saturday. It was 4 trash bags full of my youngest's old clothes because we're done with kids. We have no one to hand it down to. So it was like, here, and I told the wife, I was like, hopefully you know what was in there because within TurboTax, whenever I do it, it says how many boys' sweatshirts, and it assigns a price to it. It's like, well, if they're in good condition, they're $4. If they're in bad condition, they're $2. And I'm like, I need to know these things because I do my own tax. So it's a challenge, but I don't know what H&R Block does whenever that kind of, whenever you hand them a receipt from Goodwill. I mean, they don't know. So I don't know. But anyway, it's easy to be charitable.
This is an adjunct lager. I would assume similar to a Budweiser.
Does it say that on there? Adjunct lager?
I don't know if it says it on the can, but I looked it up. I did some research.
What does that even mean?
Some legwork.
I know what an adjunct professor is.
I didn't do that much research.
An adjunct professor means that it's not a real professor.
So it's not a real lager?
So that's what I'm taking from it.
You don't know.
My basic English skills are...
Okay, we got to look this up on the air.
Well, let's take a drink. While we're taking a drink, I'll type with my left hand. I'll drink with my right hand.
4204 off duty.
Right on.
Interesting.
It's not bad. Here it is, adjunct lager.
It's got a little different taste for what I would call a Budweiser replacement.
This is interesting.
Yep.
The premium lager category, adjunct lager, the premium... Hold, here we go. Let me read this right. The premium lager category is an adjunct lager with less adjunct use. Hold on. Maybe we got to figure out what the fuck is adjunct. I mean, adjunct definition. Are we idiots?
We might be. We're also completely unprepared for this episode.
Adjunct. A thing added to something else as a supplementary rather than an essential part. Okay. So, still doesn't make any fucking sense.
Does that mean there's something added to?
That's the noun. An adjective, connected or added to something, typically in an auxiliary way. In the grammar, use in grammar, a word or phrase used to amplify or modify the meaning of another word or words in a sentence. It still doesn't help me. I don't know what the hell an adjunct lager is.
We'll find out.
Barley is also used in the mash as roasted barley to provide color to the beer. Cassava. What the fuck is a novel adjunct used in Africa? So I guess that means that they added shit that's not normally added to lagers.
Okay. But I think Budweiser an adjunct lager, right?
Yeah, maybe.
I think all those main Miller and Coors, I think those are all adjunct lagers.
So here's another one. This is from beeradvocate.com.
Mm-hmm.
We should probably read this more.
Yeah.
American adjunct lager. Description: light-bodied, pale, fizzy lagers made popular by the large macro breweries of America after Prohibition. Focus is less on flavor and more on mass production and consumption. Amen.
Well.
Cutting flavor and sometimes cost with adjunct cereal grains like rice and corn. Okay. That fillers. It's got
makes
fillers.
Sense. Yeah.
So, all right, but still tastes good. It's definitely not Bud Light or Budweiser.
No, it's not.
Definitely got more flavor than that.
There's a little more flavor. It's kind of got some of that hops flavor without the like pininess of it. Just a little bit.
I think that's
on the
malt
back end.
you're tasting.
Okay.
I think it's the malt. I don't know.
What's the mouthfeel like? How big's the head? Is it lacing the...
Well, it's not Holmes-ish. I don't know.
We're douchebags.
Yeah. No, it's a good beer. It is a beer that I don't know that I could drink all day, but I could definitely drink more than one of them.
No, but and you and I actually not that long ago we went with our wives out to dinner, and the venue we were at had this in draft or cans.
Did we drink
I think it was cans. I did. I had one.
Did you? Okay.
And it was good. So it's the kind of thing that if I'm out at a restaurant or whatever and they have this, I'll definitely support a local brewer and drink this. It's good.
Yeah. So we're gonna keep up the in homage to Barstool Sports and the pizza rating. I'll give this a rating.
Okay,
I don't remember, what did I give.
I was just gonna say. So you rated the last one, which was the Elysian Pumpkin Ale, right?
Right.
So that was a 6.2.
Okay.
I think I said 6.5, and I think you said we had to kind of compare that to Bud Light, which I believe you said 7 or 8. So 7.5.
Yeah,
so,
right.
All right. So that being said, where do you put this?
I think it's... I'm going to take another drink.
Yep.
Have you watched any of these pizza videos from Barstool Sports? His thing is one bite, everybody knows the rules. Mm-hmm. So we should one drink, but then he never takes one bite. He always takes
you need more than one drink. I'm going to say I like it better than the pumpkin ale we had.
Yeah, see, this is the problem with rating a pumpkin ale first because we need that baseline, which I think Budweiser 7.5 is about right. I'm going to give this like a 7.1.
Okay, I'm going to say 7, 7 even, 7.0. Yeah. I like it not as well as Budweiser or Bud Light, but it's very good. I like it. It's good.
It's got kind of that funkiness, a little bit of funkiness. Yeah. It reminds me of Kraftig a little bit. Yeah. Like it's a good beer. It's not Budweiser, Bud Light, Busch Light, where it is just crushed out, mass produced beer that has not much flavor. It's they're trying a little harder. It seems like, which is good. Which is a good thing. So I like it.
I do too. Thumbs up on the 4204 Off Duty. Now I have heard, and I was gonna get it if they had it. They didn't have it at Schnucks. 4204 also makes another beer called The Answer. I'm not sure what it's the answer to. I think they used to have a beer called The Question, so this is the next beer. I've heard it's very, very good. Like, the person who was telling me that said, you're going to thank me. You'll probably hug me at work tomorrow when you see me if you get The Answer. So I'm looking forward to finding that and
getting it. We'll have to track that down.
Yeah. So we'll see. But if anybody out there wants to try out 4204 The Answer. But also, off-duty, support your local first responders. Yeah. So
it's a shame we're not getting paid for these promotions.
I know.
If only they'd listen.
Just start a fire and then call the fire department and show them our beer.
That's probably a ill-advised plan.
That's not a good idea.
Yeah, you never know. I almost had I didn't almost have to call the fire department.
Really?
But what happened today made me recall a time when I did. Here, I'll just tell the story.
What happened?
I had to take my old Pontiac. I had to take it up to the shop, get some work done, and I'm just leaving it up there for as long as it takes them to do the list of crap that I want done. So I started the car. Everybody was gone. The wife went to work. The kids went to school. I go out. I went and voted, and then we can cut that out too. And and I went and started the car, and then I realized the right rear tire was low, so I started to air it up. And it's an old car. You got to warm it up, right? So it ran for 10 minutes maybe, but it was running real rich. And but I didn't think much of it. I hopped in, pulled out, shut the garage door, drove it up to shop, dropped it off, come back. A guy drove me home. I get out of the car, and I hear coming from my house, my smoke alarms are going off, which terrifies you, right? Scares the shit out of you immediately. And so I'm like, holy shit. So I go in the house and realize it's not the smoke alarms. It's the CO2 detector.
Oh, shit. Okay.
That apparently letting the car run for that long, the exhaust had seeped into the house and it all settled low as CO2 tends to do. And it set off the CO2 detector. So it was going nuts. The dogs were chill. They were like, hey, you got a problem here, dude. I don't know what this noise is, but fix it. And so we have 3 CO2 detectors in my house. 1 is a plug into the wall. 2 are on the ceiling. They're CO2 smoke combination. So I unplugged the one from the wall, hit the reset button, trying to air out the house, all this shit. And it took me a good 45 minutes to clear out the house.
Wow.
And I get everything done. Well, and the one in the basement started going off because everything settles. It keeps going down. The shit,
Wow.
So anyway, it reminded me of a few years ago, a similar thing happened. I had a kerosene heater on in the garage. I was doing some work on the car, and it set the CO2 detectors off. I had my father-in-law living with me at the time. Kids were smaller. And I was a little worried. I thought it was the kerosene heater, but I wasn't 100% certain. So I called the city and I didn't call 911. I think I just called the fire department. And I said, hey, got this CO2 detector's going off.
You don't have to scramble the trucks or anything.
I said, I don't need lights and sirens. I said, you just send a guy with the little handheld CO2. That'd be great. If you just send that guy, that'd be awesome. They're like, all right, well, we'll send somebody out. 2 trucks, like 8 firefighters, 2 cops.
Right.
All of them got their lights on.
They were just bored.
The police chief shows up in his SUV with his lights on. I'm like, what did I say? What? What part of no lights and sirens did you not understand? So that elicits all the neighbors to come up. Whoa, hey, what's going on?
Right.
Now I got my elderly father-in-law standing on the front porch. It's cold. He's standing on the front porch with my kids.
You did have a kerosene heater, so
true. So my neighbors come out like, oh, do you want to come over and come into our house until this, until we get this and it get all figured out? And of course, my father was like, yeah. So now I got him sitting over at the neighbor's house watching TV, eating their Cheetos or something. The kids are down. I'm just like, oh my God. I didn't want this to happen. So the firefighters come in, they do all their checks. They found no CO2 other than in the garage, which is exactly where I expected to find it at. And I was like, hey, this is, but it's better safe than sorry kind of thing. Yeah. But as this is happening today, I'm like, I'm not calling 911. I'm not calling because I know what's going to happen. The cavalry's going to come. I'm not doing it. There's a long way to go for that story.
So we got to talk about this. You said the dogs were at home.
Yeah.
This is low settling to the floor. One of your dogs is lower than the others. You just got one of the cutest dogs I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think we got a cute puppy.
Really cute little puppy.
Yeah.
Millie.
She's pretty awesome so far. She's fitting into the family very well as far as the boys. Old dog. He's not digging her too much. He's really wanting nothing to do with her.
She'll get used to her.
She comes up and like wants to chew on his lip, and which I wouldn't like that either.
Yeah.
Probably the most entertaining was that he's sitting on the floor in front of my chair, and I'm rubbing his head. I'm laid back. I got my foot, and I'm rubbing him on the head with my foot, and his tail's wagging because he's a happy dog. And little Millie comes over and sees the tail wagging, and she just thinks that's a toy. So she attacked the tail, and he didn't turn and snap, but he was like, and I was like, oh, hey, Millie, don't eat his butt. So it's fun.
Now she's a Bichon and Shih Tzu mix, right?
This is true.
So she's gonna be a little dog her whole life.
Whole life, yeah. This is
my first. You guys are used to biggins.
My first little dog, yeah. But we kind of made we talked about it. We had 2 golden doodles, big dogs, not huge dogs, but bigger than most. And both the wife and I and the kids were like, it'd be great to have a little lap dog or whatever. And then whenever my other dog unexpectedly passed, we were like, all right, if we replace her, we're getting a little dog. It's done. There's no debate. This is happening. So we searched on Craigslist and, found some people that had accidents. Really, they're not a puppy mill or nothing like that. It was really a good, perfect storm of things.
I like to think it's because my dog, which is so little and is so affectionate with you, and every time you come over, she just cuddles up right with you.
Yeah,
and
your dog hates me.
You had no choice but to get a little dog.
If that dog was as big as its bark, I'd be dead. I mean, if
our dog hates Ryan.
Yeah, but you've taught. It's not just me.
No, and she doesn't hate you. She barks at everybody that comes over.
She barks more at me though.
Family member, nah. I mean, you know, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. But her tail's wagging the whole time. As soon as a couple minutes later, she calms down and everything's fine.
Yeah, whenever I'm out of sight, it's like, get out of my house. I have to hide.
You just kick her a few times and then she shuts up.
Yeah, she's a cute dog. She does some cool tricks, and she does that whole sitting up on her butt right. And like a human. That's cool. I don't know if my dog will ever reach those levels of talent.
I think that's a breed thing. The Catones just do that.
Yeah,
that's just part of I don't know how that got ingrained in them, but
it's
right now because we taught her to do it.
Right now she's 8.5 weeks old, maybe 8 weeks and 2 days old, and she's not dumb, but she's definitely a puppy, and she runs into a lot of shit, and she falls down a lot, and
right.
The boys it is funny, but I'm afraid she's going to hurt herself because they'll play with her toys, hold them up above her, and she'll jump up to get it, but she doesn't know how to land. So she ends up landing flat on her back,
right.
and she does it every time. And it's like she's got to learn that, not do that, right?
Yep.
Dogs can't be stupid for their whole life. There are dogs.
They definitely can be.
But so we got a dog, but they all survived. That was getting back to the CO2 thing. So I was worried about them, and I was like, because they're both low to the ground. So they survived. They were really calm the rest of the day too. It all worked out pretty well. So I got to
that whole lack of oxygen thing really works out.
Yeah, worked out pretty good. So no, everybody survived, but it was CO2 is nothing to mess with. I mean, I will recently we had the daylight savings time. You're supposed to check your smoke alarms and all that shit or whatever. I didn't, but I know they're pretty good. They beep at me whenever they're going.
Yeah,
so I don't.
right.
The whole change your. Screw that. Energizer started that bullshit, about, change your smoke detectors every, time you change your clocks. Fuck that. I'll do it whenever the damn thing beeps at me and tells me the battery's dead. Otherwise, I'm wasting money. But you do whatever you want to do, folks out there. You don't listen to the Energizer company or Duracell.
We are not liable for any damages or death as a result of Ryan's advice to not change your batteries very often.
But whenever they do beep at you, that's one of the most annoying things.
And it seems like it always happens in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why that is.
I don't know either. I was on a work conference call, and clearly someone else was working from home, and she's talking, and in the background I hear the beep, like every, however often it is. And I'm like, go change your battery. It's annoying me.
It's not daylight savings time.
You're across the country and it's annoying me.
Right.
No, I don't know. I don't know how people can deal with that. As soon as I hear it, I am on the hunt for which one's causing it. And whatever.
Well, you mentioned briefly this past Tuesday was it's actually today when we're recording.
Right. All right. You got me confused.
When you're listening to this, it was this past Tuesday.
Really, you people don't realize how hard this is to keep track of what day it is and when this is going to get,
we have to plan ahead.
We try to be relevant, you know?
It was Election Tuesday.
Yeah.
So we went to the polls and voted and slid our ballots into the automated machine.
Slid our polls into what?
We did. Put our polls into something.
Yeah.
I had a somewhat interesting experience. I've gone several times in the past, and it's pretty uneventful. It only takes a couple minutes. But this time was my son's first time voting. He's 18 now. He registered on his own online because he already had his license, and so a lot of times you register at the DMV when you get your license updated, so he couldn't do that a couple of years ago. So anyway, he did all that. He got his card in the mail and everything. So he went up to vote this morning, and he went about an hour before I did. And so when I got up there, they had 3 different tables for precincts, and I couldn't remember which precinct I'm in. So I'm checking the first one. No, you're not here. Go to the second one. I give them my name, and they said, Oh, yeah, we had another guy in here with your last name just a little while ago over at that table. So I go to that table, and the old gal who's helping out with they had a line of about 4 people helping out with different parts of it.
They all have their roles. Right. It really could be accomplished by one person,
I think
though.
So. It definitely
I guarantee it could.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But whatever. They got to have a certain quota, I guess, of people there.
The first lady looks my name up on this binder, and she finds me, and she checks my name off, puts a little line next to it, and then tells the next lady what my name is. And she's got a stack of these cards that have your address and your name, and I think your signature from
when
your
you
driver's
registered,
license
maybe,
and
or
all that. Yeah,
right.
So, and all this other information on there. So she's going through the stack of cards, and she's flipping through it very slowly. And she gets to where my name should be. I see my wife's name there, and she keeps going. My name's not there. She keeps going and going. So I said, well, I think you went too far. I saw my wife's name. Go back there, and it's probably back one. So she goes back one. Then there's another card with my son's name on it. She keeps going. My name's not there.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, well, my son already voted. He was here a while ago. But I see his card there. And they pull your card when you sign.
Right.
So obviously, I'm saying, okay.
So obviously, your son committed voter fraud.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
You gave my card to my son, and now my son's card is there. So these...
Did he vote for any other dead people or anything while he was there, too?
Who knows? So these 2 older ladies are trying to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, all these other people are in line. They're ready to vote, and they're just skipping right around me and doing their thing, and I'm standing there waiting for them to figure out. They have to call some office. I don't know who they called, but they called some director of somebody to figure out.
Director of elections, I would imagine. Yeah, wow.
And so basically, it ended up not being that big a deal, but this one guy, this older guy that's working there too, was like, well, I mean, his son signed his card, so he can sign his son's card, and we'll just keep on going.
That is the simplest answer.
And I almost jokingly said, that little voter fraud never hurt anybody.
Right.
I didn't say that, but I wanted to. And so in the end, after they called and cleared whatever, that was the solution. So I would sign my son's card. He signed mine.
That was legitimate from the director of elections for this district. That was
the guidance they were given.
Oh, my God.
And then they initialed each card and made a note about what happened or whatever. So, but I got my ballot. I filled it out and then put it in the box. But yeah, basically we both committed voter fraud.
Yeah, I got a lot of problems with this story. I mean, nothing that you did wrong.
Right.
You were just trying to do your civic duty, and as you should. The problem is that we're in this backwards ass state that doesn't require you to prove that you live
I was
here,
going to say
that you are
they never
who you
made
are.
me show an ID.
No.
Even after this confusion about who's who, I didn't have to show an ID.
That's just it's insane.
Yeah.
And this would have never happened if they just said, "Let me see your ID.
Right.
Let's match the name with the name on the registration card that they pull out of the binder." Furthermore, probably maybe they get somebody under 90 to work at the polls.
Right. Yeah, I know.
I don't know. That's mean. I should say it. Thank you to all those poll workers, because my grandmother used to do that too whenever she was alive, and she enjoyed it. She enjoyed the social event of it all. So I'm sure they do too.
I did call my son afterwards to give him crap. What are you doing to me? I stood here for 10 minutes and had to have this whole embarrassing scene where they figured out. And he said they asked "Are you so and so?" and my name. And he said, "No, I'm such and such." And okay. And they pulled a card out and said, "Sign here."
Yeah.
Now, my name was printed on that card.
He
my signature was on that card.
Right.
What they're supposed to do is match the signature you write to
clearly
the one that's already
nobody
there.
looked at it.
No, and she even said, the lady goes, "Oh, I guess that's before I was looking at signatures." I'm like, "Yeah, you think?" So anyway, they were not doing their job at the poll. But
so we've got a lot of listeners. Based on the numbers that I see, that are out on the West Coast in specifically the Bay Area. There's a large faction of what do we call them? Loaders.
Loaders, yeah.
Folks that listen to get a load of this.
Get a load of this. Loaders. And until we start charging, we can call them freeloaders.
Right. So there's a bunch out there in California, and I don't know what the laws are in California. I would imagine they do not have voter ID laws where you have similar to Illinois,
right,
where we live. Just across the river in Missouri, where I used to live,
Mm-hmm.
I did have to show an identification card in order to get my ballot. I don't, for the life of me, understand why that's not a law across the country.
Mm-hmm.
I know the argument that people have made in the past about how it's suppressing the minority vote. I think that's BS. I think that that's an insult to minorities. That to think that, well, because they're Hispanic or African American or whatever, underprivileged in some way, they're not smart enough to go get a driver's license or a state ID.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that. Let's present the argument. So I'll be the other side. So I guess what they're saying is that some groups, demographics, are maybe too poor to afford to renew a driver's license or to get an ID. Or maybe they can't afford transportation to get there.
Okay.
To get it replaced or updated.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the argument against that?
Well, how are they cashing a check? How are they? Let's say they're so poor.
I don't show an ID to cash a check.
You don't?
Well, I guess it depends. If I went in the drive-through at the bank, they don't. I don't think. Do they make you show your driver's license?
Yeah, generally, if you're cashing it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, unless they know you well enough, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a bank teller for a lot of years in my younger days, and if we knew who they were, if we know they come in every Friday and cash a check, and we've checked their ID multiple times, I don't do it again.
Okay.
But yeah, you that's a requirement usually, because you don't want to have someone passing a bad check, because then it's going to come back to the bank and they got to go figure out where the problem started. So you need a driver's license. You need an identification card, usually government issued identification card to cash a check, to not necessarily state issued to cash a check, but whatever. You need one to buy a firearm. You need one to buy ammunition in Illinois and in Missouri. You need one to drive. You need one to fly on an airplane. You need one to, I don't know, countless other things. To get into an office building or a government building, you need to, in many cases, show them an ID so they can issue you a temporary security pass so you can get through and go into the building. So all these
voters who flew to their polling office packing heat are clearly full of shit that don't have an ID.
My point would be that if saying that someone needs to have an ID in order to vote is suppressing their vote, then we are suppressing everyone's Second Amendment right by requiring an ID to buy a firearm or to buy ammunition.
Nobody's arguing against that.
No, and no one's arguing against we're suppressing people's freedom to travel via airplane because we're requiring an ID to get through the Homeland Security people at the airport.
Okay, so it's a little different, I think, because you're talking about a privilege, I guess it's a right to own a firearm, but it's not like you have to go do that or you feel like you need to go own a firearm. And flying, you don't have to fly somewhere. Generally, that's recreational, I suppose, for work too, but whatever. But voting is a responsibility, your civic duty, right? So
I'm allowing your argument, but I don't agree with it, that it's as much a right to be able to go buy and sell goods and to travel freely across this country unimpeded as it is to go exercise your right to vote. So that doesn't pass muster. It doesn't make sense that it is somehow suppressing the vote. I'll go one further on this.
Okay.
So let's go back to the argument about that it's poor people. It's people that are underprivileged, underserved minorities, and whether they're even not minorities, if they're Caucasian poor folk, that they don't have the means to go get identification. Do they get any government subsidy? Do they get welfare, Medicare, Medicaid? Do they get an unemployment check, a disability check? If they do, how did they sign up for that government subsidy?
Right.
They probably had to show.
Do you have to have a government ID for?
The only one that I can say anything about that I've experienced is unemployment. I did file for unemployment when I was laid off for a few months. A long time ago. And I had to show a lot of ID, as I recall. I don't remember all the things that I had to present to them, but along with that, I had to show that I was actively working to find a job, but I had to show them valid identification to say I was who I was. I would hope that would be also the case for any other government, whether it's welfare, whether it's food stamps, whatever it is. I would think you would have to show that you are who you say you are before we're just doling out money left and right.
I've heard that argument before, but I can't say that I know that you must have a driver's license or a government issued ID in order to get benefits like that. But because I've heard other people say it, I've heard you say it, I'm going to assume it's true, but we don't really know.
Right.
So I guess we need to confirm that before we...
Well, to make another argument, so if that's the argument that is made for why there shouldn't be voter ID laws. So they just say, well, no, we can't do that because that'll suppress the vote of minorities and underprivileged folks. Or we spend some of the trillions of dollars that the government spends to just provide government-issued IDs to people for free.
Right.
We'll just pay for it.
Yeah.
If you're a citizen and if you're a taxpayer or not, if you are a citizen of this great nation or a great state, then you show up, you prove that you are who you are with a birth certificate and a piece of mail or whatever it might be, your Social Security card, and then they'll take your picture and they'll issue you a state ID for free. Now, that's a pretty simple solution, but we don't do that. Why don't we do that?
Can't afford it.
Bullshit. No, it's bullshit. It's all.
You could even say if you qualify for federal aid, then you qualify for
a free state ID.
So not everybody gets a free ID, but
I just it's BS, and I'll wade into that political water that there is a certain party that thrives on not having to show an ID. I think, in my opinion, in this reporter's opinion,
and other people have made the argument, to say that that requiring an ID is targeting minorities and the poor and whatever is a racist statement. Because now you're assuming that minorities are poor,
are too dumb,
or they can't figure out a way to go do this or whatever.
There was a couple videos I've seen where some roving reporter went into Harlem or to some minority neighborhood and asked African Americans on the street, "Do you have a driver's license?" And almost 100%, if not 100%, they were like, "Well, yeah." Yeah, well, how long have you had that? And they were asking questions. They knew what the answers were going to be, and they wanted the reaction of that African American woman to say, "Well, yeah, of course I do, and I've had one since I turned 16, and I passed my driving test,
right?
And and I get it renewed every 4 years or whatever it is." And the point of the video is that the people that are saying that minorities the vote is suppressed. Is it not a racist statement to say that, well, they're too dumb or they're too poor or they can't figure out how to go get a driver's license? Isn't that a racist statement?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard they're too dumb to figure it out. I guess I've only heard not everybody can afford or is able to
why are they not able
transportation to get there? They can't get there to get their driver's license. They don't have a car.
Okay.
Can't afford a bus ticket or whatever. I mean, that's an argument I've heard.
Well, then I go back to how are they cashing their check?
Yeah.
I mean,
speaking of buses, so one of our loyal listeners works at a university near us and was telling me that one of the polling places is at the university on the Union Hall on the quad, like the main hall at the quad. And so he was passing through there today on his way to a meeting or whatever and saw a bus pull up outside. And I think he said another SUV, large SUV with several people come pouring out of it. All these people come filing out of this bus and line up to head into the Union Hall, and they're heading upstairs to go to the poll and cast their vote. And so you've heard about that in the news. We've talked about it before, busing in voters, right? Generally, I think the connotation with that is that it's potentially illegal voters, or we rounded up these homeless people or whatever, and we gave them an ID, and now they're going to go vote.
Right. Your name is John Smith. See.
Right. So, I mean, that's the connotation.
Vote for everybody with this letter behind their name. See.
That's the connotation you have with busing in voters. I give them the benefit of the doubt and say, maybe, like we said, they didn't have transportation to get there. Maybe that some very honorable citizens went around and said, we don't care who you're voting for. We just want to help you get there. So if anybody needs a ride, let us know and we'll pick you up. So, but maybe not. Probably not.
Well,
it was probably
but in the spirit of that, I mean, I would encourage that. If you know people, if they're elderly or if they're, whatever, and they want to go vote and they don't have the means to get there, absolutely. You should. Everybody should do that. And then maybe there should be organizations, whether it's a church group or whether it's a, whatever. If it's a union hall, if it's whoever, if you want to organize something like that, absolutely. The point is that I would make is that you shouldn't be trying to do anything fraudulent, and you could solve that pretty easily by requiring every one of those persons to show some identification whenever they show up to vote.
And he didn't necessarily imply anything about that. I don't think he told me anything about the demographics or their appearance or who was organizing it or any of that. He was just commenting that we've all heard about busing in voters. He's just never seen it. So that was kind of interesting. He also said on his way back out, he went through the Union Hall again, and the line was shorter, but there were still people there getting done. And he saw someone with a shirt on that had some kind of slogan on it related to some campaign or candidate, which is illegal or whatever. Well, and this woman said, you're within 100 feet, I think.
Yeah, something like
of a polling place. You aren't allowed to continue any further. You need to turn around. And he said, well, I left my bag somewhere in the cafeteria or something like that. I need to go get it. And she said, zip up your jacket and you can go get it.
Or turn your shirt inside out.
Or whatever,
feel free.
So he did and, went on. So someone at work and I were discussing that. Is that illegal? That's not a protected thing where you can wear something on your clothing?
Yeah, I don't think you couldn't wear a Make America Great Again hat and into the polling place. I think that would be considered a...
what do they call it?
Election fraud,
I think it's called.
Election. Yeah, that's right. And I don't know the illegalities of it. I don't know what the punishment is if you can get arrested for it or whatever. But yeah, it's just you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to wear propaganda or hand out bumper stickers or hold up a sign if you're within X feet, 100, 150 feet of the polling place.
I kind of get it.
Which is why when I go to the polling place, we go to the same polling place, and I didn't see it today, but usually, like right outside, like on the street, there's a line of signs, and it's for everybody, right?
I don't know if I've seen that.
And it doesn't matter if they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, Conservative, whatever party, they're just a whole line of them all the way to, and it's right at the 100-foot line or 150-foot line. I didn't see them today, but usually there's this big line of them because that's as close as they can get with that sign. But in their mind, in their marketing political mind, it's like, hey, if I got my font is the biggest, I'm the last name they see, they're going to vote for me. Yeah. I think that maybe 30 years ago that would have worked. I think that with the benefit of the environment that we're in, this political climate that we're operating in, the benefit of it, if there is any, is that awareness. Is that 30 years ago, the biggest font won, or the most commercials on TV won. But nowadays, I think that we have a more informed electorate. I think that not to say that everybody's more informed, but there are more people that are informed. I think. I could be wrong, but I hope that's the case. I maybe that's the objective of both parties, is to get people so divided that they have to inform themselves because there's so much vitriol and
see. I feel like there's potentially less people are informed now because of things like social media. Yeah, where people think they're informed, but they're really just listening to or looking at what pops up on their feed, and it's
there's always going to be people, if it was 1985, there were people that are getting their political opinions from Doonesbury.
So people act like they're informed, but they're not.
Well, right. So in 85, they were getting it from Doonesbury, or they were getting it from the, whatever opinion column of the paper that they read. Nowadays, they're getting it from Comedy Central or Instagram posts or Facebook or whatever it might be,
right?
Or SNL.
Jon Stewart is an analyst,
right? So it's not much different. What I think is better today is that access to information. Let's go compare our 85 to 2018 again, right? So in 1985, if you wanted to learn more about a candidate, you couldn't go to their website. You had to wait for the newspaper to publish the analysis of the upcoming election, or you had to watch one of the three big networks. Maybe CNN was around, maybe not. I don't think they were in 85. Maybe they were. Or you waited for the mailer to come out from the campaign, and you had to read their mailer versus. But there was no real resource where you could go and get a good unbiased view of what was at stake and who was running or what the issues were on the ballot. And I think that today there's countless, and some are very biased, and some are. But I think
you can find that on the national level. It's much harder on the local level.
It does get more difficult
to find who's running in my county or even in my state,
right?
And what do they stand for?
I was on a website today.
It's hard to know.
Looking at, I looked at my own ballot and maybe it was yesterday. I was looking at my own ballot, and then I looked at where I used to live and where my parents live. Looked at their ballots just to see what was on there, and it was a good website. And I'm going to see if I can find it again here real quick. What's on the ballot is what I typed into Google, and it's headcount.com was the website. Headcount.org. My apologies. And then you type in your address. I didn't even put in my own address. I picked one close to me because I was like, I don't want to get mail. I don't know what they're tracking. Maybe I'm crazy, but I put in someone else's address.
No, you're not crazy.
So, but it's close enough that I knew that I was in the right precinct. But it was good, and it gave every issue. But you're right. On the national level, they gave you a good analysis, like here's how they stand on this issue and this and this. And they did it for all candidates, regardless of libertarian or Republican or Democrat or whatever, independent or whatever, which is great.
Yeah.
But then when you get down to this local stuff and you're talking about like the county councilman or you're talking,
right?
Yeah, they didn't have much detail.
Yeah.
They tried. And then I think you could add information. You could offer more information, but it didn't seem like it was not like Wikipedia where it just was published.
Yeah.
Like you could send in information, they would vet it and publish it, which is good. And it seemed like what I read was unbiased. I mean, it was like, here's what they've said. They went out to candidates' websites and looked up their policy on gun control and said, here's what they've said about gun control. Here's what they've said about abortion. Here's what they've said about taxes, and just gave quotes and with no analysis or no other spin on it, which was somewhat refreshing. So,
well, something else a little different this time around. I noticed recently, the last week or so, I've been getting text messages on my phone.
Yeah, me too.
From political groups, I guess. Right. And very annoying. Let me pull up a couple of them. I probably got, 4 or 5.
Yeah, I've deleted them. Well, I don't think I have any left because I get them and I pretty much delete them immediately.
So this one, I got 3 texts from the same number. This says, this is GOP HQ. Election day is tomorrow. We need to know how many votes we have in your area code. Commit to vote.
Yep.
Polls are now open. We need your vote. And then time is running out to vote. Make sure you don't miss this election. Find your polling place. That's just one.
Right.
And then I got another one from our local area code. Today is election day. You can vote until 7 p.m. And it even has an image of Trump saying, vote no on Mike Bost.
Wait a minute.
I know.
Huh?
It says Mike Bost failed to stop illegal immigration. Vote
Isn't
no
he a
on
Republican?
Mike Bost. He is, but according to this text, Trump says vote no on him.
Really?
And I got a couple others. Tomorrow is election day.
That seems
Your neighbors
nefarious.
are prepared to vote. Are you? I got 4 different emails from this phone number.
Yeah,
not emails.
The only one
texts.
I've got here still it's from gotv.gop, and it says time is running out to vote. Make sure you don't miss this election. Find your polling place,
right.
And click. You're supposed to click on the link. I did not do that, but yeah, that's the only one I got. I don't know what the other ones were from, and I didn't really look at them that closely.
So that's annoying.
It is annoying.
I hate getting any
think
kind
it's
of
the
junk
modern
text.
day equivalent of robocalls. That they just
aren't they supposed to prevent that? Like, I thought the whole cell phone thing was...
I don't know. That's an interesting... we have to
me off.
research that some more.
We don't get that every time
that would suck.
comes up.
Well, there's got to be a way that you can just say, hey, block this shit from me. Yeah, stop sending me that crap.
I mean, I could take that number and block it.
Yeah, right.
So the ones that I got 4 or 5 from, I could have done that. I didn't because I wanted to see how this would play out.
Right. And you knew it was going to end in a little bit too. So
yeah, that's the other thing.
It's not going to go on much longer.
But I also got from 4 or 5 different numbers. So at total, I probably had 10 or 12. So I don't want to have to block each of these numbers. And how are they getting it? Where'd this come from?
I don't know. The one that's interesting that you read is that the picture of Trump saying vote no on Mike Bost. So I don't know who it's from, but that's shit. I don't know if Trump supports Mike Bost or not. I would presume he does.
You would think, but I mean, there's always some kind of crossover there.
Right. But. So maybe Bost was a jerk to him or something like that.
So would you assume that was coming from a Democrat side?
I don't know.
But it's saying it's
showing
think it
might
Trump.
Who was running against Bost? What's his name? Kelly? No.
I forget.
Yeah, me too. But let's say it's coming from his campaign or some PAC or super PAC or something like that. I could see that being the case, and that's shady shit.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a news story, and I don't know when it came out, but it was apparently there was a robocall by some, I think, pretty well documented, legit white supremacist group, some racist fuckers that had someone who did an Oprah Winfrey impersonation, saying, I'm Oprah Winfrey and don't vote for this black blah blah blah. Forget the gal that she's been supporting, I think in Alabama or something like that. And that's just wrong. I mean, it's like, and anybody that's got half a brain cell is going to know that Oprah wouldn't say that. She's been out stumping for this lady for the past, 3 months.
Right.
She's not going to say that. And the fact that they were able to do that and to make phone calls to people with this racist message is bullshit. It's just bullshit. And it doesn't matter. I don't give a shit what color tie you're wearing. It's wrong. It's wrong to misrepresent things. There should be, if there's any laws that need to be created, it should be around how politicians can communicate with the public and how their messages can go out. It's hard because you don't want to suppress their speech too much. You want them to be able to make an argument, but they can't be just lying flat, and then misrepresenting things and misrepresenting people, especially making racist statements.
That's probably like a libel or something.
Well, slander or libel. Yeah, I don't know.
Claim that a message came from a
person I would presume that Oprah's going to be suing somebody.
Yeah, probably. If they can figure out who
and hopefully donating the money to some worthy cause.
Right.
But I just think that's
you
crazy.
Get a lawsuit. You get a lawsuit.
Right. No, I think that the people, I don't know. For the most part, I've said this before on this podcast, that people are smart. The majority of Americans are intelligent people, and that we're talking about the fringes where crazy lives. And the majority, that 70% that's in the middle of the political spectrum are good, sound-minded, reasonable Americans. It's the 15% that live on the fringes, whether they be right or left, that we got to watch out for. And those are the people that are doing crazy shit like that. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm not. I hope that it is just the fringes, and maybe those fringes are growing. I've heard people tell me that that's the case. That may be. If so, it's a shame, because I would hope that with the information that's available out there to everybody in this age, that we would be getting more informed instead of trusting whatever the medium may be. If it's television, if it's
I don't know if that extreme fringe is growing. I mentioned this to you off the air, I think. I feel like, and I talked about this at work today, I feel like what people used to call politically correct, or, what you can't say, or this or that, it didn't really invade into daily life all that much. It was TV, you can't show this on television.
Like 20 years ago.
It was a joke. You can't say this kind of joke anymore, or whatever, right? Yeah, 20 whatever years ago. But I feel like that mentality has become such the sensitivity, right? People get so offended, they're so sensitive to any little thing that people judge everybody constantly on, where their viewpoint is. but I feel like they've taken, half the population is, at least right now. So the narrative would be that if you voted for Trump, you're a racist, or if you are a Republican, you're a racist or a bigot or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of this small extreme on one side that actually is racist and is, the white supremacists or whatever, right, who are holding up their candidate, David Duke or whatever, right, and that kind of thing. Rightfully, we should be treating them as extremists and calling them out for it, right? But now it's like, oh, you voted red, you racist.
Yeah, automatically.
You think this? Yeah, you think this candidate is better than that candidate? You bigot. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Now you just labeled half the country as the extreme, right? And so I don't think the extreme is getting bigger. I think a bigger part of the country is being labeled extreme.
Right.
And I don't think it's fair.
No, it's not. Well, and it goes back to we talked about this a little bit before we started, that if you make that argument, then it's basically the same as making the argument that all of Buddhist China, is China, right? That they're all going to hell because they don't believe in the same God as you. And that all of the Mormons are going to hell, and all of the Muslims are going to hell, and it goes the other way. That all the Muslims think that all the Christians are going to hell, and so you can't make blanket statements like that.
We can't all be going to hell.
Well, right, that's going to be really friggin' crowded, and but it's the point is that you just don't make those blanket statements. Just because someone is white and has a penis doesn't make them an evil person. Just because someone is black and doesn't have a penis doesn't make them anything other than just a human being, right? This is Martin Luther King's crowning achievement, right? His most widely renowned statement is that judge people on the content of their character. It's pretty simple shit, and people want to, and people do, and rightfully put him up on a pedestal, but yet so quickly forget exactly what he was trying to teach everybody. And if, and both sides do it.
Yeah. I think I implied, and maybe I believe it a little, that the left is doing it to the right, accusing us. And right now, I think that's the scenario.
Yeah.
8 years ago was probably the other way, but
yeah, maybe I don't know.
But you're right. Both sides do it, and
it does seem like it's happening more from the left to the right. My wife mentioned someone made a post on social media this morning, a friend of hers that, and he's a liberal, and he said something along the lines of a lot of white guys. A lot of old white guys at the poll this morning. I just hope it's not those old white guys, and it's the right old white guys.
Yeah.
And when I immediately said, I was like, does this dude not realize he's an old white guy?
Right.
He's older than me. Yeah. He's white. He's a guy. He happens to be a member of the LGBTQ community, but that doesn't absolve you from your old white maleness. You're still an old white guy. And just because you happen to be on this side of the political spectrum, it's just what I want to do is point out the irrelevance of his statement. Is that you cannot paint with that broad a brush.
Just like he doesn't want to be judged for being an older white guy and have his opinion made for him.
Right.
He shouldn't be making the same judgment. Yeah.
Yeah. You could take his identity as a gay man. He doesn't want to be painted with that brush. He's just a guy who happens to enjoy the company of other men and be attracted to other men. Nothing wrong with that. So, but I would never paint all gay men with one brush, or gay women, or straight men, or straight women, or black, or white, or Asian, or Latino. It doesn't matter. It's pretty simple shit.
Yep.
But more and more, that's what's happening out there in the world. Is that everybody wants to just broad brush everyone. Yeah. And it's bullshit.
Well, speaking of that,
bullshit?
No, gay men.
Wait. Okay.
Got an announcement to make here, Ryan.
Oh boy. Does the wife know?
She does.
Oh, wow.
My wife and I went and saw Bohemian Rhapsody this weekend. It's really good.
Yeah, I'll bet it is.
Yeah,
I've heard it's really good.
Yeah. The main actor, Rami Malek, who portrays Freddie Mercury, did a very, very good job. He doesn't quite look exactly like him. I mean, it's hard to look like Freddie Mercury.
Right.
But his mannerisms are very, very similar, especially when they went later with the short haircut and the mustache, and then he really, really starts to look like him. But it was very good.
Yeah.
And of course, the music throughout the whole movie is great.
Was it
Queen song?
It was Queen music. It wasn't. They weren't trying to recreate Queen songs with someone else singing. It was actually Freddie singing. Because that's hard.
So that's
to
interesting.
replicate.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me back up for a second.
Yep.
You're crushing the segues tonight.
Am I?
Yeah, you're doing a hell of a job.
Good.
Man. So good job on that.
Yeah, that was one of the things that impressed me most about the movie was clearly there were times, I would say most of the time, it was Freddie Mercury singing.
Yep.
Or the whole band playing. But what was impressive about it was there'd be, a scene in the movie where, say, he's in his living room with a piano and he's writing this song for the first time or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's Freddie Mercury singing it, right? But it's the sound of the echo of that room, right? So this, they had to do some studio magic where they took the recorded album version, or maybe even
just
a
demo tapes,
right?
And
but
they've
then
remastered
you
them.
Add the right effect to it, the right kind of reverb to make it sound like that room, and it sounds like it's being sung in this room as opposed to a studio or whatever.
Right.
So that was really impressive. I did read a little bit afterwards. Of course, I had to do some research because that's who I am.
Yeah, that's how you roll.
So the actor, Rami Malek, did sing some of it. And you could tell times where he was singing. He clearly started singing notes after speaking, and there wasn't this jump from his spoken voice to some other person singing. It was like, wow, that's impressive. Now, you could tell
it wasn't
Freddie Mercury,
but it was still good.
He was hitting those notes, and he sounded really good, and he had that, that timbre that sounds like Freddie.
Yeah.
So that was impressive. And then apparently what I read was there's some guy who's kind of well known in these circles as being the most similar to Freddie Mercury's voice. He's won some competitions of Queen sound-alikes and stuff like that. And so he's kind of known, and they hired him to sing some parts that they didn't have tracks of Freddie singing it, and they couldn't get this actor to do it, so he did it. So there's 3 actual singers. There's the real Freddie Mercury, there's the actor, and then there's this guy. But they did a very good job of making it not distracting. So you weren't constantly going, God, I wish it wasn't the actor singing, I wish it wasn't clearly Freddie Mercury. I mean, the whole time I kept being like, I can't tell who's singing. Like, this is really good. And the same with the band. The band never looked like they weren't playing their instruments and all that. So
that's the hardest part of it. I mean, we've seen a lot of, what was it, Buddy Holly movie with, what's his name? Gary Busey. I think it's Gary Busey playing, but it's not a bad movie, but the sounds didn't match the instruments, and it was bad lip syncing, and there was a lot of things they could have done better. So my question, they start from his childhood, right? I mean, the movie starts from his childhood and watches him come up and be an awkward teen and
basically,
and deal with his oddity, which is his teeth. And so did they address that he never got his teeth fixed because of his concern about his voice being different? Yeah,
briefly, just in one sentence, they addressed it.
So do you think that would have been the case?
No, I don't.
He could have had his teeth fixed.
The argument was, so apparently he had 4 extra sets, I think, of incisors.
Really?
It may have been 4, which would be 2 sets, but I think they said 4 sets of incisors.
Wow.
So his mouth had a lot of extra teeth, and it forced the front teeth out. So he had this very, buck tooth look to him.
Buck tooth, yeah.
But it wasn't just that. I mean, he had a mouthful of teeth. So in the argument in the movie, and also I've read this in print, is that he said, my mouth is bigger to allow for all these extra teeth, which makes a bigger voice, right? So I got more echo.
Well, I mean, good for him.
On.
I mean, it sounds like he just embraced who he is, and
right.
Regardless of whether it would have changed his voice or he thought it would have changed his voice.
I don't think it would have.
It was just him saying, look, this is who I am, and I don't give a shit. He was comfortable being who he was.
Right, which was fine.
Yeah, which is good. But I just, it's like when you see, Barbra Streisand has made a similar argument. She's never had her nose done. And I think there's some legitimacy to this, that if she were to have her nose done, it would change her voice. And she's got a magnificent voice. She's an amazing, artist. But that's got to be challenging whenever you get in the public eye, especially for as long as she has been, and as long as Freddie was. That to not give in to those urges to be like, well, I want to be as marketable as I can be, and I want to have this look, and you know, I mean, look at Cher. I mean, she's clearly not concerned about her voice because she's had a whole new workup done. You know, has Madonna had work? I wonder.
Oh, I would assume so, but I don't know. Yeah. One of the most impressive things about it was, and kind of the climax of the film, I don't want to give anything away, but it's been in the trailers and everything.
Spoiler alert, Freddie dies.
Well, yeah, he is no longer with us. Yeah. But Live Aid, the concert Live Aid, is the climax of the movie. And
arguably the most compelling live performance in the history of rock and roll music.
Right.
By some people.
Yeah.
Not necessarily by this guy. But, yeah.
And so the reality of, or the realism of that concert in the movie was amazing.
Really?
It looked exactly like every bit of footage you've ever seen of that concert, right down to the things he did on stage. Every little leg kick, every little
just very well
motion
choreographed
that he did. Because afterwards I watched the Queen
the
set,
actual one,
of that concert, and it's exact. I mean, every bit of it was right out of the movie, or the movie was right out of that concert. So that was impressive. If you're a Queen fan, those little details will be interesting. Now, I gotta say, and I hate to say it because it kind of ruins it for me. If you're watching the movie and you don't know everything about Queen, you'll like the movie and the whole story of their life and their career and his life. It's about Freddie mostly, but is great until you realize afterwards they really played with fact quite a bit. It was not all true. And it wasn't even things that they just made up. It was like they changed the order of things.
Right.
Stuff that happened a couple years later, they made it happen at this point. Stuff that happened, you know, they made it seem like this, but it really was like that. And
dramatic license is what it is, you know.
But it's like,
if it was
would have
too
been
far,
fine to just tell it how it happened.
Well, sure, but if it was too far from the truth, then was Brian May, and those guys would have probably
those guys
revolted. They were deeply involved,
producers.
Right?
Yeah, they were definitely involved.
So I think it was probably they toyed with things, but they get it as long as the message was there and there was some level of realism. But they got to understand that it's got to be a marketable motion picture.
You got to wrap it up in 2.5 hours or whatever. So, you know, I kind of get it, but it was like, oh, I thought that was super cool. But instead it was like, oh, that happened later.
Right.
So it's not as cool as it seemed, but it's still really good. I recommend it. If you're a Queen fan, go see it for sure.
Right.
It's cool.
When did you become aware of Queen?
Yeah. So...
And you're a musical mind, right? You've been in tune, but also kind of lived a sheltered childhood too.
I'm a musician, but at the same time, we've talked about this before. I was not exposed to rock music at a young age. You know, it was around that time when he died, which was 91. I would have been 13. So it was right around that time that I started really kind of listening to more music. So before he died, I didn't know much about Queen. I'm sure I had heard some of their songs, but I was not familiar with them. I didn't know anything about Freddie Mercury. And at the same time, in the late 80s, early 90s, as an adolescent, I'm not sure what my real understanding of homosexuality was, and who was and who wasn't. And even at that point, it wasn't talked about.
No,
much
it wasn't.
at all.
And that's an interesting point that we need to wrap it up here a little bit. But you know, my sister and I think have talked about this, that Elton John is probably the but Freddie Mercury as well, but Elton John's probably and George Michael for that matter, that these are homosexual men that were superstars,
right? And
recording songs that talked about love and talked about, you know, companionship, whatever it may be, right? And you never had an inclination. And Freddie Mercury and Queen, they recorded a lot of songs that now in hindsight, you listen to them again, you're like, oh. Okay.
I would think so. I don't know, when did Elton John kind of become, everybody knew he was gay? I mean, it had to be early on, right? I mean, he had flamboyant personality.
Maybe I can only speak for my acknowledgement of it, but I remember listening to Elton John my entire childhood and never having. I knew he was a flamboyant dresser, and you know, but
that was rock and roll.
I just never thought anything of it. I mean, but I was also watching Twisted Sister videos, and I was I mean, so you see a lot of glam rock and you know.
Well, I do think Freddie Mercury shied away from it a little bit. I mean, in some people's eyes, he was clearly gay, but he
claimed to be bisexual, right?
He said, he said that, and I think there was evidence of that. He was engaged to a woman for a long time and was her companion for a long time. But I think he kind of didn't really embrace it. But again, at that time, that maybe lifestyle wasn't being embraced by many people. It wasn't. Yeah, I mean, people were very bigoted against homosexuality at that point. So it wasn't, unheard of to deny your sexuality, or at least not discuss it publicly. But and at the same time, so HIV was a big thing in the news at that point, and was growing exponentially.
Right. And it was all pinned on gay men at that time too. So
I think, to answer your question, around that time, I would say the early 90s is when I started to become familiar with Queen and who Freddie Mercury was. And I'm sure it was his death and the popularity of that that made me aware of all that.
Right.
And it made me, start like, oh, what is AIDS? What's the difference between HIV and AIDS?
Yeah.
Who gets it? How did he get it? Who did he know? Oh, does this guy have AIDS? Does that guy have AIDS?
Can I get him a toilet seat? Yeah.
Right. So there was this very weird time for me and a lot of people my age who were dealing with their own adolescence and teenage years and getting into music and rock and roll and what that is. I mean, we can all identify with rock music as far as like how that affects your mentality. You remember songs from that era, right?
It shapes you. Yeah,
it does. Yeah. And so Queen for me was, and still is, just very different. There's no band like Queen out there. They're just very different. Yeah. In a cool way. And so that was like just bizarre to be exposed to that at 13 or whatever. And learn all these songs and have the greatest hits and whatever. So,
well, that's the thing, is that I think same with a lot of bands, is that their greatest hits album, which was released in the late 80s, I would imagine, is their best-selling album of all time. I presume. I think that's a fact. But it's because of people's late recognition of what they were doing. We had, myself included, had heard Queen music my whole childhood. Never really put it together who it was. I wasn't a huge fan.
Right.
But honestly, I believe it was Wayne's World is what drew a lot of people to be like, that's a cool ass song.
Yeah.
And I want to know who sings that. And they bought the Wayne's World soundtrack, and they also learned about Gary Wright's Dreamweaver at the time too. So, I'm sure Gary Wright experienced a resurgence in album sales. But I think that was most people our age, their first like, oh, that's Queen. And then they listen to the greatest hits and be like, I know all these songs, or not all, most of these songs, and they're all really good.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And and that's probably the best thing that ever happened to Queen was, one of the best things was Wayne's World. Their use of that song. And
they even acknowledged that in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, indirectly. So hopefully this isn't spoiler alert, but so Mike Myers has a cameo in the movie. It's not related to Wayne's World or anything, but he plays their basically record label representative for EMI. And they said basically they wanted to cast him in some role in this movie to kind of credit him for, because they said Wayne's World sold
a lot of albums.
It brought a bunch of ears to Queen that didn't know Queen before,
right?
And kind of made it cool again. So so they kind of credit him. That was kind of cool.
What other examples of that there are where people just weren't aware of something until it was some song in a movie? I think there's a lot of that. You look at like Guardians of the Galaxy and their soundtrack. It's one of the best selling soundtracks of the past 10 years.
It's all classic
and it's
songs,
all 70s ballads, and kids love it. When my kids were listening to it, and I'm like, you like this? And they're like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm like, this is yacht rock, baby. This is 70s easy listening. It's good stuff, or early 80s.
We could have a whole episode about Queen.
Yeah. So tell us about your opinions. But we've covered a lot of ground on this episode. We'd like to thank our veterans once again, whether they're with us or not. Thank them for their service. It is close enough to Veterans Day. We also covered elections, election fraud,
puppy dogs,
voter ID laws, dogs, puppies, little dogs, big dogs, CO2.
HIV.
Don't call the fire department. HIV, Queen, Freddie Mercury, Wayne's World, you name it. We probably missed some things. How the fuck are we going to promote this shit?
I don't know.
Yeah, this is going to be a
lot of hashtags.
Be a hell of a hashtag. Yeah, I got to get on the ball on that. But I promise to keep delivering on posts on social media. Check us out at Load This Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Send us an email. What is it? Get a load of this podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think it's get a load of this at
No,
Gmail.
it's load this podcast at gmail.com. Neither one of us know it.
We don't email ourselves.
I know, this is true.
It's like
load
calling
this
your own phone
podcast at gmail.com is the email address. And YouTube, get a load of this podcast. That's where it is, on YouTube.
Dang it.
Check us out and let us know your thoughts. And if we pissed you off, great. Tell us about it. That's not the objective here, but we do want to hear if someone has a differing opinion.
We try to be subtle, but if you can figure out who we voted for, let us know.
Yeah. But I would have. There was no marijuana.
I know the Missourians
issues.
Had all the fun.
Yeah, they had all the fun, but we already passed that in Illinois, and but I'd vote for that shit again, over and over again. I think, you know what? To each their own. Yeah. You want to get high? Get high. You're not hurting anybody. I don't think anybody should abuse anything, whether it's beer or tobacco or marijuana or heroin. But
that's a whole other episode that I would like to get into. So maybe
someday,
maybe next time
we'll see how the polls turn out. By the time this gets to the air, we'll know. You all will know a hell of a lot more about the election results of 2018. But till next time.
I'm Jared.
I am Ryan.
And get a load of this. Now you got to be clever.
Right. Like I can't do two things. I can't text and talk at the same time. Notice it's gotten worse too. Seems like I used to be able to multitask better, but now I'm a fucking idiot. I can't. I can't type on the computer at work. I can't. It's like if I'm doing something, I go, hold on a second.
Can't drive and text at the same time.
No, I definitely can't do that. But I can take notes. That's the thing. I can take notes on a call, and I can be involved in the conversation and type notes. But like if I get an email that I need to respond to, and I'm talking to someone about something separately, I kind of have to stop that and do the other thing. Maybe I had a stroke, and I just don't
normal.
know.
I don't think that's necessarily.
Seems like I used to be able to do that though. Seems like I used to be better at switching, midstream like that. But I don't know. That's a problem with today's work environment, I think.
Yeah.
Is that we have so many, along with our personal, you have personal email that you can get at work. But like most people, I think, have their cell phones by their side at the office. Right. And there's distractions that come up with that. And then let alone the constant emails and instant messages and people walking up to your desk, and that to be able to switch gears, and if you're in the middle of a project or a presentation, putting one together, and someone interrupts you, to get back to the pace that you were moving again is hard.
Right.
It's hard to shift gears back into what you were doing. You've now downshifted to say, what's your question? Let me answer this question. Now, what was I doing? And you got to figure out where you were and get moving again in the right direction. It's really easy to get derailed. So, but I don't know if that was the case 30 years ago. That's something we could talk about someday. Not this one, but what the work environment was like in 1980.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, a typewriter on every desk. Not every desk, but everybody had a folio fax. They had a binder with a calendar in it. They didn't have a smartphone. They didn't have Outlook.
Oh yeah, right.
They didn't have email. If the boss wanted to call a meeting, they sent a memorandum. They didn't send an email and a calendar invite. There wasn't a need to have 30 conference rooms in a building because meetings didn't happen as much as, people just did their job.
Right.
Now we have a meeting about a meeting about a meeting,
Sport coats with padded shoulders.
Right, yeah. Liquor cabinets in every office. Those are the good old days.
Right.
Probably
smoking at your desk.
Earlier than 1980. 1980 was 1996, 7. Whenever my first job there was people smoking at their desk still
Yeah.
in downtown. I can't imagine that anymore.
I know.
We've kind of talked about that, how people used to smoke at the grocery store and smoking everywhere. It's like, it's unbelievable how accepted it was, and nobody said anything about it. I don't know. It's weird.
It is weird.
And it wasn't that long ago, and we lived through it, and it's still weird to think about how...
I'm glad it's done, though.
I agree, yeah. Well, I was a smoker for a while, and I didn't I think I did realize how the smell of it and how it stuck to my clothes and my hands and all that stuff, but as long as I was a smoker, it didn't really bother me because I was kind of immune to it.
Yeah, right.
But it makes you wonder, like, what other people were thinking, you know? But there were so many people that smoked, though, so maybe they didn't even notice it either. I don't know.
Yeah, I jokingly berate it. I'm used to it. I mean, you smell people who smoke, and it's not that bad.
Unless it's my hair, the gal that cuts my hair. I can't handle that because her hands are way too close to my head. That if they
Does she?
This one, she just quit.
You have had some.
I have in the past had, you know, and I've had some that you'd have never known because they make a point that if they know they're working
right,
and they have to be close to their customer in order to do their job, that they would make a concerted effort to not smell like a cigarette. Whether hand lotions or whatever, and make sure they wash and they spray perfume or whatever they do, that's great. But then there's others, usually at a Great Clips or a Fantastic Sam's or something like that, where it's like, Jesus Christ, did you put the cigarette out in your hand? I mean, what the fuck? Were you blowing smoke down your blouse? I mean, what the fuck were you doing out there?
Right.
It's hard, and that I can't do it because I think that's another thing with people who used to smoke that. It revolts them even more.
I was just gonna say, do you get the itch?
No, but
you also
tobacco.
you dip.
I have my own habits, so. But
yeah, you're the dirty fuck.
Yeah, but see, that's the other thing is that nobody knows unless you're around me long enough to watch me throw a dip in. Or
your wife knows.
My wife knows,
Gross.
But most people, you know, like I go around the office.
Yeah, I didn't know for years that you dipped.
Yeah, all day long I'll have a dip in, but it's the pouches too. I used to when I used to chew the long cut, you know, loose stuff. It was a little more challenging, but I could still conceal it. But now it
was falling out of your mouth.
Never that, but it was definitely harder to keep things in check. And but I didn't do it as much. Now it's almost too damn easy that you just throw a pouch in, you can tuck it in the back, and no one sees it. And plus, I'm a fat fuck, and I got a beard, so it conceals all the bulges in my cheek or whatever. So, but people don't know.
Yeah.
And if they do,
they know now.
Happen to notice, then it's like, I didn't know you did that. I'm like, well, that's kind of the point, you know. There's a few places where I don't go. Don't go to the dentist with a chew in, obviously. Don't go to the doctor. I just went to the doctor. Don't go there. Don't know why. He doesn't look at my mouth, but don't go to the, you know, just matter of principle. Should probably cut out the nicotine while you're talking to your doctor.
The throat cancer ward. You don't go there.
Don't go there. No. But like parent-teacher conferences, you betcha. I gotta have a dip in. Otherwise, I'll murder somebody. No, I don't know. It's a constant. It's a bad thing. It's a bad habit. I gotta quit. I bought some of those coffee pouches. We gotta get this thing started.
Yeah, let's go, man.
I bought some of these. They make some that are mint, like ground up mint.
Really?
That made to help you quit, right?
Really? Okay.
And I've tried those.
Coffee?
Now, yeah, they're new and they're pouches, and it's coffee grounds and it's flavored coffee. I don't like coffee though. I don't drink coffee, but I was like, well, maybe these. It's probably better than tobacco. It was horrible. It was the most bitter shit. I was like, I think I used 2 of them. Now they're they're in my console in my truck, and they're just like emergency only. Like, all right, I gotta have something. There's no nicotine in it, but it'll at least fix the oral fixation aspect of it. But
all right, let's do this.